So with 3 cars on the drive and wanting to maintain them all, I thought I'd look at buying one of these little OBD scanners. So I've already got the multi-ECU scan for the Alpha, but I've also running a little Renault Clio and a Land Rover Discovery as well. The kind of manufacturer recommended tools for them are quite expensive. Certainly the Land Rover one is about £400 for the product, and then you need to license it as well. So I thought I'd go for a nice little cheap product and see what you get for your money. So with this VEEPEAK one, what you actually get is just the adapter that plugs into the car. And then what you have to do is download a software or download an app to your phone. And then this is what you use as the interface between the car and your phone so that you can read the diagnostic results. So I think this one come from Amazon. It was either Amazon or eBay, one of the two. I think it's about 40 quid, something like that. So let's unbox it and we'll have a look and see exactly what we get for our money. So inside the box, we've got this nice little plastic case. Seems pretty robust, to be fair. It's got some contact details on the back there. It's got a little clip, and then inside we can see we've got some instructions, little quick setup guide, and then the actual device itself. So the device itself just sits inside this phone holder, and then all you've got basically, you can see there, just the pins where it connects to the OBD port on the car, and then at the back of it there's nothing. It's just literally a Bluetooth module that plugs in, and then you need to connect it to the app. So there's 2 different platforms that it will connect to, either Android or Apple operating system, the iOS, and it's the iOS that we're going to be using today. So we can see on the instructions here that for the iOS system, you need to install a third-party app, which is what I was saying about, plug the device into the car and turn the ignition on, and then in Bluetooth you should actually see the VEEPEAK menu, or the VEEPEAK module in the Bluetooth, should we say. But do not connect it to the Bluetooth in the Bluetooth of the car. You need to start the app and then go through into the connection settings, and that's where it says, see user manual, and you configure the app to allow it to connect appropriately. So we've got the user manual here, lots and lots of information as we can see. But I thought what we'd do is get out to the car, have a look and see what we can do. It may be a bit challenging to be able to show you exactly what I'm doing on my phone, because I'm actually using this phone that you're looking through now as such to do the filming, so I might need to do some screen recording and see if I can dub over the top of it. But let's have a look and see how we get on. So we're going to try and connect firstly to the Land Rover. So with the Land Rover, the OBD port is just down here. So the adapter's plugged in, and now what we can do is just turn the ignition on. And now this is where it's going to be difficult, because I'm going to have to do a bit of screen recording on the phone, which means I'm not going to be able to talk over it. So the first thing we did is go into the app. Once it's open, we just clicked on the top right and went into settings. The next one, obviously going into my car. And you can see we've got an existing car in there, a little Renault Clio. So that's what I first loaded when I first downloaded the app and went into it, just playing with it. But we need to add a new car on this one. So we're going to go on to the add a new car. Give it a name. So for this Discovery, we're going to call it a Disco 4. And then the other point that we need to do is then just give it the year. So this is a 2014 model, so we'll just put that in there. Then we come back out into settings. And from here, this is where it wasn't particularly clear on the instructions why we needed to go. So I think I went back from here to the main menu, hit connect, to see if it would connect directly, but obviously it then brought up the options of what method do we want to use to connect. It was all a little bit confusing. It didn't really make a lot of sense, and you'll see in a second that it tries to connect using the Bluetooth, which we'd said about. So that's where I stopped. Okay, so initially I've not been able to connect to it, whether it's because of the connection method. I think it's, you have to set up a Wi-Fi network for it, or allow settings and so on to go through. So what I'm going to do is just run through these. I thought it was going to be a little bit more intuitive than it was, but we'll run through these. I'm going to run through this now just to see exactly what we need to do for the iOS settings. It looks like on the phone that it was all allowed and configured to connect to the unit, but we'll run through and see exactly what we need to do, and hopefully we will get it to connect. Okay, so just reading through it, obviously once you've got the ignition turned on, that it says kind of in this stage here, that's what we did. We had that which was fine. Enable Bluetooth, and it says if you use iOS devices, do not connect, go to the next step, which is fine. That's what we did. And on the next step here, it actually says start the app, make connection setting. Blue light should start flashing, and connect Bluetooth choose Bluetooth LE for iOS. So what we had in the app was Wi-Fi and not Bluetooth LE. So I've just gone back into the app now, change that back to Bluetooth LE. So I'm going to turn the ignition on and we'll see if we can connect now. So back in the app, we can see that we're just coming into the point where we changed that to Bluetooth LE. And we actually, when trying to connect, it said there's no device connected, go into settings. So I just went into settings, changed and selected the actual adapter because it's recognized it then, come back to the main menu and hit connect. All a bit fast, so I apologize for that. But then as you can see, it's connected straight away. It's picked up some of the data, the VIN number and everything there, and we've got the 2 green connect symbols. So then we just went straight into dashboard, top left of the screen, and we can see that we've got a picture of the Rev Counter and so on. Obviously the engine's not running, we've only got the ignition on. So we'll just come back out of there just so that we can have a look and see exactly what's going on to see what information might be available. The next one you can see there, select live data mode. So this is top middle. I clicked on that and it kind of gives us a warning about, or a message about whether or not you wanted to look at separate data or combined data. So initially, not having done it before, I just clicked on separate data. And the first thing it's brought up there, I can't remember, I'm sure there must have been a selection that I actually chose, is the number plate. It's not the number plate, it's the suspension height. So this is one of the heights for one of the rear wheels, which on the Land Rover, obviously you can adjust it. So now I've gone back into the live data, and rather than go for the separate option there, what I'm going to do is click on the combined option, and then we'll be able to see exactly what that means in terms of connections and what's possible. So on the combined, you can see we've kind of got all the different options running down the left hand side with their descriptions. If I just run down a few here, you can see as I was doing it, all the different points that you can potentially look to interrogate. So you've got kind of the toggle switches on the right hand side. You can see I select one there, and I'm just going to select another one if I remember rightly as I went down, considering which ones I wanted to try and look at. It's the first time I've actually been into this, so I'm sure I'm going to spend a lot of time in the future going through, playing and seeing what other information I can try and get out. So that's the second option that I've just selected there, which is interesting. You can see just at the bottom it says selected now 3, and then when I try and connect to that, it tells us that you need the kind of the license version. So I just turned the third option off and went back in, having selected only 2 items, and we're just getting what's the live data, shall we say, of those 2 selected points, neither of which are particularly interesting because the engine's not running or anything like that. So what I'm going to do now is just turn those 2 off, come back to the menu and go back into, I think, the all sensor option as it was there. So we can see now kind of straight away we've got lots of live data straight away coming in there, voltages and pressures, information around some of the different sensors that are or that is available, should we say, that we can look at, make sure that the times are synced, make sure that everything that we can see on screen is where it needs to be. If the engine was running, obviously we'd get some of this other data coming up, so the distance traveled, the fuel used, the engine oil temperature. Obviously we can see that there as well at the moment. Different other temperatures, different things. And then one of the options there we had was about the suspension heights that you can see. Different temperatures for the different devices and wheel speeds. It's quite an interesting one there. Obviously we're not going anywhere at the moment, but if you had a faulty ABS sensor ring or something like that, that's where you'd be able to see differentiation between one of the 4 corners. So then I come back to the main screen, went back onto the live data pieces, or the diagnostic trouble codes rather this is. So this is where we're going to try and look and read any fault codes that the car might have. So you can see all the different systems that a device can interrogate, all those different options that it can try and talk to see if there's any fault codes with any of those elements. So down the bottom, I think you've got read or clear. It's a little bit difficult for me to see here. So what I thought I'd do, I'd just jump into it. I'd just leave them all selected and let the scanner read all of those systems. As you can see on the bottom of the screen there, it's counting up out of 53 different possible systems. It's going to interrogate every single one of them and try and see if it's got any codes that we need to clear, or obviously clearing codes doesn't fix the fault, as we know. Clearing codes only puts a plaster over the top of it for a short time. So we can see that there's obviously a few fault codes coming up, which is great because it shows that it's actually been able to interrogate those systems and get some of that data in. So you can see it's constantly scrolling through. Of the 53, we're up to 23, 24, 25 systems now. And you can see the names of the systems that it's talking to, and it's kind of looking for any fault codes as it goes through. A couple more codes have come up there. So I think we're on about 6, maybe 7 different DTCs that have come up. So it's still scrolling through. It doesn't take too long. Obviously, by the time it talks to them, you're kind of able to make sure that you can see exactly what's going on, what the different systems are as it goes through, and obviously those codes that are coming up as you need to, then you can kind of look at them and see if it's something that you are actually looking to find out what the problem is. If you're in limp home mode or something like that and you wanted to work out what the problem was. So looking at these 7 codes that we've got up here, you can see lots of them are inactive or archived. In actual fact, I think every single one of them is an archive fault. So what that means is it's not a fault code that's apparent anymore. It's a system or an error that was historic, should we say. So I'm just there just taking a couple of screenshots from the phone. So we've got a record if we wanted to go back and see if there was any problems. And then what I've actually done there is chosen to clear the DTCs, to clear the diagnostic codes. So it just says there a little error message about some cars do not like to have the engine running when it's clearing the fault codes. So you want to make sure that your engine's not running in this scenario if possible. So I accepted that, and you can just see that it's clearing those fault codes 3, 4, 5 and 6, and then the last one, number 7. Once it's cleared, it just says DTC clearing completed, which is great. And then we're left with no fault codes at all. So what I'm going to do now is just start the engine and then try and connect to it so that we can get some real live data for engine speed and pedal positions and stuff like that. So here we are back in the app. Hit connect straight away, and this time we don't need to go through any of the Bluetooth connections, because once it's set up once for that car, then it remembers the settings and stays exactly as it is. Straight on the top left hand icon, the dashboard, we went straight into that, and here we can see kind of the dashboard that it gives you, the live Rev Counter information just coming up there. Sliding left, I think it was on the screen, we can see some more of the other information there. So you've got kind of the revs, and I can't see what the top left one is from where I am, but you can see the live information coming in there. The longer you leave it up, the more data starts to flow in from the system as it starts to kind of build up a little bit more data as the time goes on. Obviously without much going on the charts, it doesn't really read much, but the longer you leave it, obviously the more data you're going to start to build up. Sliding back across, we can see the other information coming back in, and then going back into it and back out of it, we come back to the live data option. So again, on this one, we're going to go into the combine just as we did last time. You can see that we've got one selected there, the module voltage. So I'm just going to select another one there, intake temperature, and again with 3 of them connected or selected rather, I think it said 4 actually, there's still the other one from last time, it remembers the settings. Just disconnecting them, we can see the 2 information there, the MAF, I think it's the MAF reading and the air intake temperature. So just as I rev it, you can see obviously the readings going through the MAF go up and down quite a lot. The air intake temperature stays the same all the time, it's nice and consistent. The air outside on the day that I did this was pretty cold, as you can see, about 7 degrees I think. Just revving, trying to hold the rev still and steady there. Not a very steady foot today, but you can just see kind of the data coming in as it runs through. Back to the menu coming out of that, just deselect those 2 options, look at another couple. So we've just got a few more other sensor types just to look at and interrogate. So you can see, I think it's the left hand one, you can see them down the bottom. One's the red graph and one is the green graph. As far as I understand it, the red one, its chart is applicable to the left hand side. You see you've got 2 sets of data, one up the left and one at the right. The one on the left hand side is appropriate to the red data, so that's the one at the top down the bottom, and the other one obviously is the right hand side. Back to the menu, we switch those two off, and just scrolling down you can see that we're going to look at some other points there. So I think we've got the fuel rail pressure we're going to look at just as that comes in, and then just slowly thinking about what else I'm going to look at there. So then going on to it, obviously once we've only just got those two items selected, and you can see as I'm again just blipping the throttle, just giving it some revs, that pressure on the fuel rail going up and down, and there we go. So back to the menu, we can have a look through, see what other options we've got. So two interesting ones here for the Land Rover. Obviously you can see the suspension heights, so you can see at the minute you've kind of got the one at the top, should we say, or the red data, which is the left hand side, and the green data, which is the right hand side. With the Land Rover you've got the option obviously of raising the suspension, so that's what I've done here, just hit raise suspension, and you can see that it's gone up. So the suspension height just on those two corners of the car have gone all the way up, with the green one staying relatively about the same amount of distance higher than the other one, the red one. So it's just as it's kind of pumping up, it's sitting on the compressor, you can see it's wavering just ever so slightly there. Just coming back out of that, we'll look at the other side, or the other two wheels, their suspension height. You can see there's a fair bit of difference here between these ones. So again, as we look through, you can see kind of that slight quivering, slight wavering, which is, I'm not sure exactly what the figures are here. My pixels on my screen are very small and I can't actually read the data up the chart on the left hand side, but it's probably just as it's on the compressor, it's probably like wavering about 0.5 millimeter less than that or so, something. So here you can just see that I've put it down, I've lowered the suspension back down to its kind of standard position, just let it run for a second, and then I'm lowering it down to the access height. Again, that distance between the two suspension heights has stayed about the same, but that's probably because the driveway is slightly uneven and that corner is slightly lower than the other wheels. Perhaps maybe there's a slight dip in my driveway that I didn't know about, a couple of millimeters or a centimeter or something like that. Coming back, we can have a look, see if there's any information about the distance from the last oil service, see if it's going to give us any of that data. We've got pretty much a standard red line there. And then back to the menu, this is where we can now look at all sensors, and it gives us a lot more live information now we've got the engine running. So we can see that information there, lots of those components, and the engine coolant temperature is just starting to heat up a little bit as the engine is now running. We can see lots of the other bits and pieces there if we scroll down, some of the other stuff that we've looked at previously already. So where we've got some of the bar charts, we can actually see the digital reading of those there. Other information, just as we scroll down, we can continue to look, we can see the average fuel consumption, and one of the points that we've got there is about cost as well. So you can actually go into the settings on the app and put the cost of the fuel that you're using, select if it's diesel or petrol, how much that costs, and it will actually work it out for you how much a journey has cost you. So if you're kind of looking to work out how much you're going to get from a fuel tank or something like that, then you'll be able to work that out, or let the app do it for you. On the screen there, you can just see the difference between those four suspension heights as well. So for a Land Rover owner, many people I'm sure will be conscious that that's one of those things in life that you have to put up with. I just took a quick screenshot there, just going to help for some diagnostics later on as we go through. I'm starting to look at some bits, see if there is actually a fault with that rear left corner there. And then we've got some other elements there. Just you can see the wheel speed is just going forward ever so slightly, or just going up a little bit. That's just where I've put the car in park and just into gear rather, or drive, and just gone forward slightly. Back to the main menu, we now then go into the diagnostic trouble codes. And what it's actually done, you can see from last time, it's actually turned off all the codes or all the systems that it couldn't read and left them turned off. So the ones that it's happy to read, the one that this scanner's happy to talk to or interrogate, it's left on. So with those ones connected, What I'm going to do is just now go back into it and read those fault codes. So that's exactly what I've done, and you can see that what it was 53 different systems before, I think it's now down to, I think that's whatever that figure is on there, 19 or something like that, and it's going through reading those available systems that it can actually talk to with this scanner. It's going through, obviously we picked up one system there already, which is related to the dashboard, and I think if I remember rightly, this was in regard to the rear camera. So in my Land Rover, when you reverse, the rear camera comes on, and when you stop, it goes off. And I think possibly there might be a small fault in that because it's bringing that up, obviously where I've just gone backwards and forwards. So go into that and clear that. This option here is one that I didn't spend too much time waiting for. As I hit into it, or as I selected the option, it went through and it was reading, and it spent quite a long while reading it. And I thought, I'm not going to bother filming all that because I'm sure you'll want to have a go for yourself at some point in time. The next option that I went into here was about the acceleration tests, and what does it do? It's exactly that, acceleration test. You can see on the screen there, 0 to 20, I think 0 to 30, 60, 90 and 100 miles an hour. So what you can do is you start driving forward, it will actually start the clock automatically, and it will start counting up, and you can work out for yourself. So that was it. I then disconnected from the car just by going back to the main screen and hitting disconnect. I then went over to the Clio. Okay, so here we are in the Clio. So I'm not sure if you know where the OBD port is on a Clio. Just down here under the center console, kind of, you've got this little finger hole. You just pop your finger in there, pull it down. It might be a little bit stiff, but that just comes away. And then you can see once that's down that the OBD port is there. So we'll just get the scanner plugged in now. Right, okay, so the first thing I've just done is just gone into the app and just selected the different car. So I'd already set up where you saw in maybe kind of the first bit of the video, we went in and set up the Land Rover, added that car. In this one on the app, I've already added this car to the app. So we should be able to just turn the ignition on. Shouldn't start, there we go, press brake to start. And now what I'm going to do is just go onto the app and see if we can connect directly to the car. So straight into the app and just hit connect. Straight away it tries to connect, but this time it's just hanging, it's just sitting there, and it's only giving us kind of connection to one element below. So I jumped out of there and tried to connect with the engine running this time, and tried it again, and there we go, we've got the two green connected lines down the bottom, and it connected just perfectly. So this one had to have the engine running. Straight into the dashboard here, we can see the live data. You can see the RPM there, just jumping up and down a little bit as I hit in the throttle. Sliding across just to the graphic, you can see that again there if I just blip the throttle a couple of times. Back to the main screen, we can go back into the live data. So on the live data, we're going to go straight into the combined this time, just as we learned a lesson on the Land Rover, it's easier to do it that way. Looking at the different options we've got here, we're going to go into just two very early ones. I think the system voltage, and I think it was the external air temperature or something like that, or the coolant temperature. Again, it's a bit difficult for me to see on the screen I'm looking at the moment. But you can see, obviously, just as it's starting to warm up because the engine's running, that temperature is going up ever so slightly just as it's starting to run. Back into the options menu there, we just turn those two off and we can just scroll down, have a look. You can see, obviously, we've got lots and lots of data here. So we can just look at two options, engine RPM and vehicle speed. So just with the idling, we can just see that information there. If I just try and build up the revs a little bit, as I did, we can just see that going in there. I think the green one was just as I rolled the car backwards and forwards, if I remember rightly, and then just giving the engine a little blip on the throttle again, something like that, and you can just see that live data coming in. Back to the options, we then turn those two off. We can just have a look at the external temperature. Obviously makes sense that it's going to be consistent, same as it was in the Land Rover. And then I think it's the throttle position, so just pumping the accelerator pedal, you can just see how much it's on and off there. If it's just pumped a few times, maybe just held slightly. Turning those two options again off, we can just scroll down and we can see there's so many different options. There's so much that we can potentially look at to do. So we've got supply voltage that we can see, and as much as it looks pretty crazy, like it's really fluctuating up and down massively, because there's so little change in difference, what it's actually doing is giving us a really zoomed in view. Obviously, if it was speed and it went from 0 to, I don't know, maybe 30-40 miles an hour, it's going to be a lot finer, and those little variations are going to look more like a flat line. As we scroll down, we can see that there's a whole load of different elements that we can interrogate, that we can get that data from, which is what this tool's all about. It's about diagnosing faults. So if we know that we've got a problem with something, one, we'd be able to go in and read the fault codes, and we'd be able to then work out what it is, so that we'd have some sort of an idea of what system we want to look at, see if it's working properly, see what the readings are that are coming off of it, see if the voltages are too high, the temperatures are too low, or whatever other elements that is, or should we say that we're looking at, are actually going to be within set parameters that we would expect. This one was an interesting one. I wasn't exactly sure what we were going to get from it, the passenger door, so I selected it and just tried opening the driver's door rather, and just tried opening it a couple of times just to see if we'd get a binary switch off and on, maybe as the door was sensed to be open and closed. But we didn't get that, so I'm guessing it wasn't exactly the right thing that I was looking at regardless anyway. So come back out of that, switch that option off, and just continued looking through for anything that was going to be of interest that we can try. This one, I was going to see if we could actually activate the rear wiper. So is it bi-directional communication that we get on this VEEPEAK diagnostic tool? So what do I mean by that? So that you can actually hit activate on this one, and what it will do, send in a request and actually activate that device, whether it's the rear wiper or maybe the interior light or the left hand indicator, whatever it might be. I know the one that we've got for the Alpha is bi-directional, but I'm guessing you get what you pay for, really, not forgetting that this one is a relatively cheap product. But you can see there's so many different options that we can try and interrogate, which is fantastic. In the all sensors option, we can see again the live data that we're getting in here. So different temperatures, different voltages, different speeds, different parameters of each of the different elements. Distance travelled, shall we say, since we last did the checks, or since we last cleared the codes, or any of those different elements, which is really good, because that might be something, you know, you put your car into a garage to have it diagnosed or serviced or something like that, and they should have at that point in time realistically gone through, read whatever error codes there are, tried to rectify any faults obviously before then clearing the codes and getting them done and dusted out of the way. So if you've got your car, or you've had it for however long, then you should know realistically or roughly how long that should have been. And if it's been years and your car's been serviced regularly by your local garage, and it's saying that it's been 10 years or however old your car is since that they were last cleared, then you know something's not quite right. They're not doing their job thoroughly enough. So much information on here that we can look at and we can really get out of it. So coming back to the menu, we then look to the diagnostic codes, the DTCs, the diagnostic trouble codes. Again, we've got lots of different systems here that are able to be read on this Clio. So what I've done, exactly the same as we did on the Discovery, just left them all ticked, and we're going to try and talk to every single one of them and see what codes or what fault we get coming up. So straight away, again, we are getting some codes coming up, which is interesting to see. A couple, again, I think maybe looking at them, they are old ones, certainly archived ones there. So we'll talk about that a bit more in a second. Again, just as I did, taking a couple of screenshots, or just taking a screenshot so that I can keep that for the records. If anything goes wrong, again, I know that that was an issue previously. So then once we've got those faults up, from there, what we looked to do was try and clear those codes. Same again though, we've got the warning about not clearing the codes while the engine is running. Obviously this time the engine is running on the Clio, so I jumped out of there and decided for now we'll just jump back to the menu and not execute that. However, I did then go back into it with the engine running and took the plunge and did clear the codes off successfully. Bottom left here you'll see coding and service, which is a different option, a new one to the ones that we saw with the Land Rover. So we've got kind of a message there, or a warning message that says about it's the experimental mode. So reset your service warning at your own peril. So I decided not to do that again at this time. So what have we found? Well, I think, you know, for a little diagnostic tool that it is, it's been really good actually, to be fair, to be able to connect to different cars. There's lots of, there it goes, there's lots of different cars available in its listing, you know, lots of different manufacturers. So the fact that it can do both kind of the Renault, it can do the Land Rover over there. We'll check it on the Alpha later on as well. But for now, you know, being able to read the full code, see exactly what's up. If you had an issue, you'd be able to diagnose it and see exactly where any issues were, which was good. The live data coming in as well, so that was really useful. One thing that it's not said that it's able to do, and one thing that I was kind of hoping that it might be able to do, is to reset service intervals and so on, stuff like that. So the service is actually just about due on the Land Rover. The service is due on this one as well, so that was kind of what I was hoping I'd be able to do. It did come up on the screen that you may have seen, kind of the service and maintenance aspect of it was still in trial, so it's not been actually tested on a live car yet. So what I think I might do is go into that, give it a go, see if it will reset it, see if it will reset the service reminder that comes up on the dashboard here when you start the car. And if it does, fantastic. If it doesn't, then, you know, we'll go through and see if there's a dance on the pedals that we can do and stand upside down and breathe 16 times in 22 seconds or something like that while pressing and holding the fan up button or something. You know, these crazy maneuvers that you have to do to, or processes that you have to go through to reset the service indicators. But yeah, you know, we'll see. For the sake of however much this was, I think I got it on a Black Friday deal, so it was only 27 quid, something like that. Really not bad, to be fair. Pretty happy with it. We can see the voltages, we can see this, that and the other, we can read all those full codes, so I'm pretty happy with it. So for now, hopefully that's been useful. If you've enjoyed it, give us a like down below. If you haven't done so already, remember to hit subscribe coming up here now. You know, I always really appreciate everyone watching the videos, and like I always say, the more likes, the more subscribers I get, the more videos I'll make. So this is going to be the first of kind of a series of videos that I'm going to put together just outside of the Alpha, just how to do things, how to do various random things, whether it might even be around the house and stuff like that. So for now, yeah, like I say, really appreciate your time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.